we are going to see what Game 1 has in store for us because Champ Select is ready.
That it certainly is. So let's kick things off here, Max. Let's see what happens as Ion take to the Rift first with blue side priority. They're going to ban away the likes of Belveth, Jax, as well as Nocturne. As for Fury, Denied Ashe, which we heard Hexflash talk about. Obviously, the Rumble as well was so insanely strong. I think Kalista has certainly risen through the ranks, becoming one of those early game powerhouses.
And that's the thing, Skimmy, the bot lane meta has changed so much from what little competitive we've seen so far. Champions that can build lethality in the bot lane are actually being prioritized a lot more. So something like a Kalista has been a really traditional answer into that because you can just pair it with an engaged support and kind of kill the lethality user like a Jhin or a Varus before it can really come online. But here is the pick that has been so dominant from what I've heard in scrims. It's the Lucian. He makes such good use out of the energized items with something like the Voltaic Cyclo Sword on top of a Storm Razor that he is essentially dashing in, and even without a Nami, he's going to be able to kill you on one wave.
There's a world in which, here, Max, I'm absolutely terrified if you manage to lock in LB as well as the Lucian. Because then suddenly you're just energized, waves don't exist, pressure is constantly mounting, you get those Void Grubs on top of that, and I mean, every lane is just yours.
Yeah, I mean, AD LeBlanc was an absolute terror when it was viable last split, and it seems like this split is going to be the same as the bot lane's locked in, and there we go, Skimmy. So already, this team from Ion, incredibly squishy. Glass Cannon team comp at the Malzahar. Fury has prepped this.
That's nice, that's exciting, and it also gives maybe a little bit more insight as to why they opted for the red side, right? That was that coveted counter pick to try and say, you can have all the OP champions, but we're going to make sure that you cannot cleanse your way out of this one.
And Malzahar just makes LeBlanc's life a living hell, right? Traditionally, AD LeBlanc, especially with this new build, you're just Wing and you're getting one auto attack. But now, in any situation where Malzahar's on your screen, you can't be doing that. You can't be playing as aggressively. So Fury's already picked themselves up the Milio to pair with the Aphelios. Great disengage into something like the Lucian Nami, who are going to be looking to constantly dash forward. And now you've got a Malzahar as well. So if you're not picking up a QSS here on these Ion carries, it's going to be really tough to play these skirmishes.
It's going to be a bit of a nightmare, as you said. It is worth noting to the viewers out there that we are playing on 14.1, not the hotfix B patch. So AD LeBlanc is still very much viable. Obviously, Storm Surge is insanely broken as well. So expect to see a fair few of those coming out to play. Gwen, as well as Aatrox, denied on the side of Fury. As for Ion, they say, we don't want any more engage, any way to try and access our backline. So Xin and Yone denied.
Yeah, and I like this as well, the targeted bans towards Doraemon. Obviously, he's a new player as well, so getting him off of his comfort can just multiply the nerves that he's already going to be feeling as he heads into this game. And then Thomasino on one of his stock standard picks, the Cassante here, a very safe blind and also fantastic at dealing with these lethality AD carries that want to jump in.
Well, speaking of champions, I'd like to jump in another coveted one that really springs to mind me for Foreigner. He's gone for the Jarvan, right? So really a case of we're forcing a fight before you get a chance to ideally set yourself up for the perfect flank or the perfect opportunity. It won't be a teamer. I'd be insanely surprised if it were to be. They do need a little bit more AP damage, especially if that is going to be the Trinity Force building LeBlanc. Currently considering the idea of a Gragas, and it'll just give them a little bit more engaged, as well as disengage too.
Well, what's interesting to me, Skimmy, is what build Doraemon's going to go here on this Gragas. We've seen a lot of AP Gragas with the changes to Archangels, making it a bit of a nicer pickup, as well as AP items just being in general very, very strong at this point in the season. So if he is going to go towards more that carry-oriented build, then you're looking at kind of squishes in every single lane here for Ion, and your Jarvan really being your sole engage. So as they round out the comp here for Fury, it is going to be the Viego locked in. Now, in terms of CC setup, he does have some towards the mid lane and top lane, but bot lane, it's going to be a bloodbath early on.
I mean, really, looking at both drafts there, it is absolute solo queue carnage. Really a case of kill or be killed, because there's no case of elegant orb walking and finding that perfect reset on a cooldown and then re-engage. It's a case of you're dead in a blink of an eye, you missed that flash, you hover just a little bit too long, and suddenly a triple kill's happened for the enemy opposition. Hard to say, I think, from my perspective at least, who won the draft. Do you have an inkling? Because I look at the side of Iron and say, you've got Lucian, you've got Nami, and you've got LeBlanc. I feel like those three picks in essence as a combination, it's just like GG.
Yeah, so to me, the big question is how practiced are Fury on this Malzahar, right? Because Malzahar is one of those champions that this team has obviously been putting the prep work in. They've had that ready as a counter to the LeBlanc. So if they know how to play it, then perhaps they can just take advantage of Ion jumping in at inopportune times. However, on the other hand, this Jarvan pick is absolutely 1v9 this game, right? He's playing against an Aphelios, Milio, and a Malzahar, all immobile carries, so if he gets you in the Cataclysm, it is just going to be a bloodbath from that point on. So it really comes down to a matter of execution, particularly around this Malzahar pick.
Is it fair to say then that there's a lot of onus, as much as you obviously want to see Lucian and LeBlanc get ahead, is there a massive onus then on Foreigner to have a really strong and stable early game to make sure that he's actually a relevant factor, he isn't just, you know, EQing in just to get one shot?
I would say his main role early on is to be able to mobilize with this LeBlanc, right? Because Malzahar's weakness, he has very good wave clear, but he is horrible in early skirmishes, right? Compared to something like a LeBlanc, it's not even comparable. So when you have something like the Void Grub spawning pre-6, when you have those opportunities to fight early on, that's going to be where Foreigner really needs to take his opportunity and accelerate the game from there.
Really expecting a heavy snowball style of gameplay then coming out of Iron is really what I'm getting from that. As for Fury as well, you talk about the Malzahar obviously being a great counter pick. Obviously Aphelios, especially given that you mentioned lethality is so strong, can tech into lethality if he chooses. So Aphelios seems to be one of those other champions right up there at the top of the table, looking to try and cause a bit of a headache for the opposition.
Yeah, the only thing I'm worried about here with the Aphelios is if he manages to just play into that burst cycle of Ion, right? LeBlanc and Lucian aren't giving you the time to ramp up. They're not giving you the time to continuously hit. That something like Aphelios would like, right? So if he's able to get a front-to-back teamfight, he will absolutely out-DPS the enemy carries, but he needs to get into that situation first.
What a situation we find ourselves in is the start of a brand new season here, Max. The LCO 2024 Split 1 begins right here and right now with new players, new orgs, and a new map to top it all off.
I just love the fry tag as well. I didn't realize that was their tag, but that's kind of cool.
Is it not just like a... surely we can just say that they're cooking because, you know, you're frying. So surely we say let them cook, let them fry. Are we just making up things?
They've been absolutely deep fried. To me, the interesting part as well to see as we go into this new split is like, how does level 1 change? Obviously with the terrain changes, it makes some invades possible that you typically wouldn't have, particularly towards that bot lane bush, right? You can actually get in quite deep into the enemy jungle without being seen on vision. So teams still opting for a pretty standard approach in terms of just banning 5 across the map. Neither team wants to be too risky this early on.
No, and as you say, bot lane a lot more balanced, a lot more mirrored, I suppose is a fairer term, right? Given the entry points in the bushes to, you know, replicate. So should open up some interesting ideas as how junglers and just mid lane roams look to factor into making bot lane a massive, you know, contributing factor for the overall state of this game. I guess talking about level 1s, we didn't really tend to see too many during the regular split. It usually got reserved for maybe a game 2 or game 3 in a playoff game. Obviously very early days, so we have to see if that one changes any much soon.
It would be exciting, wouldn't it? Like teams coming in game 1 and just having a crazy elaborate level 1. But I think like especially with these young teams, they just have confidence and like Hexflash mentioned earlier, there are those nerves, right? So you don't want to make the game non-standard before you have to.
No, you want to keep it as stock standard as you can. And speaking of, well, not really stock standard, but I suppose it has been because it's been around for the last 6 months at least, is this AD LeBlanc style with the fleet footwork. Just a lot of shoving potential, so much damage from those auto attacks. And speaking
Big
of,
trade here.
look at Thomasina's delivering right now into Doraemon, both down to about 50%, but out comes the potion. There is the body slam afterwards. And both find themselves worse for wear.
Yeah, it looked good for Thomasina there, but he cancelled an auto and he does have the wave pushing against him, right? So Doraemon on this Gragas just able to heal back up. In regards to our previous question about whether it was going to be the tank or AP variant, that phase rush to me does indicate that he is going towards that more caster style of Gragas. Unfortunately, there's no Everfrost in the game. I know Gragas absolutely love that item, but certainly there are a number of AP items that still make this champion an absolute menace. Yeah,
just watch him lock in Storm Surge first item and we just go GG. What a great item that one is. Nox going to be able to pick up that camp there as Foreigner goes in for a nice little invade, saying that blue buff, in fact, does belong to us. That comes to Sweeper, looking to try and reveal that it's down to 50% and his bot lane has been taken away from their wave. This one's just going to fall down for free as Foreigner gets back up from his bot lane.
And this is another one of those issues, Skimmy, with drafting scaling lanes, is you have no priority. So Viego was lucky to be able to get his Gromp here, right? Let's say that invade happened a little bit earlier. He might have even gotten forced off that one as well, but very nice from Foreigner. Picks up the blue buff and will be able to go and clear his bot side to have a pretty healthy CS lead to start this game off.
That's all we can ask for, right? Aggression coming out of the Zen nice and early, so going for the denial of that camp as well as into the Scuttler too to keep eyes in the sky as to when that dragon does spawn. Obviously, the big thing we're going to be looking forward to are those Void Grubs and how they look to try and shake up the map a whole bunch before that Herald does come into play. And how that ultimately affects team strategies, right? Are we going to see teams really looking to try and play for a lot of shoving potential, taking down towers as quickly as they can, or
Ignite.
A much more methodical way of just scaling into the late game? You mention it. Ignite goes out there from Nebula as Hooper feels himself down to, only 2 bars left.
This is a really tough position, Skimmy. Look at Hooper's HP bar. He has no potions left, and his jungler's on the opposite side of the map. If Ion let this wave push into them, it could be really bad. It looks like they're going to look to shove and get a reset instead, but what I wanted to draw everyone's attention to is this Doran's Blade reset here from Nox. This is something that junglers have been doing more and more often with the effectiveness of Doran's Blade in the early game, right? It's just such a good stat stick with the Omni Vamp, with the health, and with the AD that you're getting. Junglers will often do 4 camps, base, pick this item up, and then you come out, you just beat the enemy jungler in any skirmish, right? So when it is such a early snowball matchup, like the Viego versus Jarvan, having this extra skirmishing power can mean all the difference in a level 3, level 4 fight.
Which could be so important with those objectives soon to spawn, but Foreigner is looking to try and push the ante right now, looking to hunt for that first blood. The bubble doesn't connect, but that goes to Flag and Drag. That also misses for Hooper. Underneath the turret, hits the root. There's the flash from Nebula, but he's still out as first blood goes away for Foreigner.
And that's really unfortunate there from Hooper. He plays it really well, flashing the Jarvan EQ, but he lost the barrier earlier on, right? If he had that extra HP, you'd have to imagine there's a world in which someone from Ion goes down. But now it's a stacked wave, it's a crashed wave, and our first successful dive and our first successful kill of LCO Split 1 to A24.
That's the one. So Nox, knowing that's all going down in the bot lane, is going to take his opportunity now to pick up as many of these grubs as he can. Let's run it back and see how it all started first of all, because the bubble initially does not connect.
Yeah, the bubble misses. I feel like Hexflash should have held that, but he still does a good job tanking 2 turret shots, right? That means that when Nebula starts tanking, he isn't actually going to go down, and unfortunately Hooper doing the best he can to dodge, but the damage is just too much.
Well, it seems that all 3 stacks then have been claimed by Fury. That's going to work wonders for them, doing damage to these structures. Where does Nox decide to go now? Just going to plant a ward down on the enemy blue and make sure they've always got tabs as to where Foreigner can be, given that level 6 is not too far away. You can see our Soloveners now just cresting over to pick up their ultimates now. Quick checking with some of the itemization, and you can see that the Noon Quiver already picked up here by Jovi, so really looking to put in a bit of a CS clinic. He's already up by 10.
Yeah, and he basically has free move. Obviously, Malzahar will get to the point where he kind of just presses EW on the wave and it disappears, but Jovi should always be able to do this, press his W like he's doing now, and get a ward deep in the jungle, and this makes the life of the bot lane of Ion, who always want to be pushing, so much easier, right? If you have tabs on the enemy jungler like they do on Nox now, they can feel free to take trades, they can feel free to make dives. As Foreigner feels like he's been on this side of the map for the entire game.
It certainly does feel. I mean, you can see him obviously mirrored with the amount of CS that Nox has picked up, but wherever he goes, he is finding stuff, whether that be pressure, camps, ganks, or ultimately saying, you get the grubs and we'll get the dragon. Look to try and scale them up, get themselves that late game insurance. But for a comp that wants to snowball, look, it's only early days, only 7 minutes into this one. But by 1,000, you'd say it's going to plan.
It definitely is going to plan. The only thing that went against them was that those 3 grubs going the way of Nox, but that's just because they were making a play on the other side of the map, right? Currently a 12 CS lead for Nebula, up a lot more gold as well with the first strike and with that kill going into his assist, rather going into his back pocket as well as he's going forward again. Look at this trading. There's nothing Flora can do.
Even Hooper with the campfire there with the extended auto attack range, the one running away, doesn't want to do anything. Doesn't really want to engage at all with this Lucian Nami pairing. Obviously so strong, so much burst damage between the 2 of them. But Nox has not really taken his opportunity to go for an early fight, has been very much playing opposite side of the map here to the Jarvan.
That's a stacked wave.
Let's see what Foreigner decides to do this time. Cataclysm is
He's
up
got
and available.
6 and there's no flash.
There is the Flag and Drag to open things up. The bubble does connect this time, but it means that Hooper's dead for right. Dunked on his head, Hex Flash tanking an auto. And you just know, Max, they're looking for more. 2 plates about to fall on down. Toppy, the one just out of range, but Jovi's on a flank. He's on a hunt. And he's got the kill.
That was really nice by Jovi. Held the chains until that flash came out from Toppy, and now it's a double kill for Ion. And not only that, but they crash waves, they get plates as well. This is blown out to an over 20 CS lead. They are stomping this bot lane to start this game.
That they certainly are. You look at the bot lane and say, well, they've only got a bunch of assists. It's a very fed Jarvan. But I mean, really, the Jarvan is just a product of success wherever he goes, whether it be a kill or an assist. The whole team is getting amongst all that action. And what we're saying before was only a 1k lead, now becomes 2.
I mean, as soon as Foreigner goes in here with the 6, Hooper accepts his death, right? That's why he runs forward, trying to create space from Toppy, who should really just be running here. He knows the enemy mid lane is missing, but unfortunately he doesn't realize that in time, and Jovi here makes the really nice decision. Double distortion, holds the chains to come through, and it's an easy double kill.
That certainly is, and that certainly makes life even harder now for Chirp. You said in isolation can certainly give this LeBlanc a fairly hard time, but when given this amount of freedom just to roam and rotate and pick up kills like such and utilize all their summoners to good success as well, it makes it so difficult for Chip to really find a moment to stand still and say, I've locked you in my grasp, but I actually don't have the damage to kill you.
And this is another one of those things that you don't really talk about with these younger teams, is it's having a voice, right? Because when you are Chirp here playing on this Malzahar, you are very reliant on your jungler, right? You are never going to be able to actually kill this LeBlanc by yourself unless she really messes up. So you need your jungler to be there. But Nox is wanting to farm, he's wanting to split map, he's wanting to hit grubs, as he may have found Nebula.
He certainly has. A face check from Nebula. This time he hits the flash across the wall and gets himself out of harm's way. And that is Nox's first contribution to a gank, looking for a kill to even out things in the bot lane, because Hooper's already down 0-2. And you mentioned this during the loading screen, right? I don't think Hooper really has a chance to actually ramp up and start to deal damage.
No, especially if he's this far behind, right? He is just going to be getting one shot by this mid-80 carry combo. As Foreigner, he's going to be able to trade here. If he manages to pick up 2, he will deny the 5 Void Grubs. Obviously really important to deny any of those Void Mites spawning when you are attacking the turrets. So a nice little trade here, and all you really lose in return is the flash from Lucian.
Certainly would be. It just means that both teams would have a bit of a gentleman's handshake and say, look, we're just going to be doing a little bit more damage, a little bit more true damage through that dot being applied when we do hit those towers. Similarly the case at 3 apiece either way. As Doraemon's going to plant himself down. A nice little bit of vision to make sure that he's not getting ganked from the top side as Nox does decide to pan away. But top, as it always tends to be, I guess, Max, has been the quietest.
It's just a snooze fest, especially here with the map changes. No one really wants to gank, right? Especially when you're playing something like a tank. Yeah, they might do a bit of damage, but they have the sustain that no one is really going to go down. So I'm assuming these guys just really have their worth measured in what they can do in team fights.
Back to the bot lane then, which has certainly been the focus of these first 10 minutes of gameplay. Both junglers looking to try and rotate and make their presence felt once again. Nox going to go into the new Pixel Bush and clear out 2 walls in the process, as Foreigner looks to try and even out that matchup as well and find himself in the vicinity too. No doubt waiting for that next dragon to spawn, which will be not too far away now. But he's going to try and wrap around undetected here by Jovi. Looking to try and go in for the stun. There it is! Into the Nevergrass. Do they have the damage? That's the concern. Oh. And that's the question, even with the Malignants. Not enough damage to take LB down.
Yeah, if you can't one-shot LeBlanc, she is absolutely going to get out of dodge, and she does. Yes, she has to use the flash, but at the end of the day, that means that Malzahar's ult is down. That means that Jovi can play very recklessly for this next period of time while that's on cooldown. And with Dragon spawning, here goes Nebula.
Hold on, bot lane right now. Hooper in a lot of trouble, flashing away. The flash bubble from Hexflash now turning their attention on towards Toppy, and he has nowhere to go. Flash was about 5 seconds away, but it's going to be 2 in the bot lane. Actually, speak of it, Jovi just gets a cheeky one on towards Chirp. And then in the top lane, can Fly find anything? Can they get anything at all? No! Doraemon just hits them with the bomber and walks away.
It's a disaster. It's an absolute horror for Fury here. No play across the map goes their way. Doraemon somehow outplaying the dive as well. Does Thomasino want more?
He's going for more, and he'll get it! Fury are on the board, 6-1, but Doraemon will take him to the grave as well.
Yeah, you'll take that. It starts off with that skirmish in bot lane. Honestly, just the power is too much here from this Lucian Nami. Fry don't have the damage to stand up and take it. Mid lane as well, taking advantage of this Malzahar, who's very immobile against something like a Jarvan and LeBlanc. And then Gragas. If there's one champion you don't want to dive, I'd probably say Gragas is in my top 3.
Well, it certainly feels like there's a handful of champions that fit the bill, right? You think Gragas, you think Set, you think, Castante, and certainly Doraemon was like, well, have at it. Give me a go and see what happens, right? And obviously he's just gone into them and said, well, there's 2 kills, easy as you like it. There is no lane that is really losing. And I think the big thing for me is mid-jungle is so good right now for Ion. Just the fact you mentioned, if the ultimate's down, what can Mouse do?
Yeah, I mean, I think he was trying to predict the flash there from Foreigner, but Chirp actually held his nerve as we take a look at the dive again. So, unfortunately, Thomasino starts tanking really, really early. A really nice E from Doraemon to separate the distance between him and Nox, and by the time the turret actually starts hitting that Viego, it's so ramped up that it just kills him in 2 shots.
But it certainly did, as the lane swaps are going to come out as a result as well. Jovi now with the QSS picked up second. I mentioned just how strong their mid-jungle is. You've got Sundered Sky and Static Shiv. Those 2 together, compared to what you see coming out of Nox and Chirp, is infinitely better. And no doubt going to be a big reason why they can literally take what they like, which has at this stage been 2 dragons. And well, as you saw there before, 7 kills to 1. They are the ones in the driver's seat. They are the ones forcing these lane swaps. Yeah,
and it's not just the Shiv skimmy. Jovi also has a QSS. So the thing that we mentioned in Champion Select, where he's only really scared if there's a Malzahar nearby because he can get ulted, that no longer applies, right? And then you look at the rest of Fury's team comp, there's really not that much CC. Besides Cassante, the only other thing you're going to get hit with is a Viego W, and even that's not reliable. So Jovi has so much gold that he can just go this while still being ahead in items, and it really makes him hard to deal with.
Certainly does. The resistance, the slipperiness, the elusiveness, if you will, making it very difficult for anybody to really act as a contender when they face him in lane. And there we go. The objectives starting to cycle a little bit out of control as they are going to look to try and pick themselves up the very first hero of the game, the brand new one. We can jump on as a passenger and guide its charge wherever you like. So Nox, for a Viego, has been very gain conversion, I would say. One invitation into the mid lane didn't really work. It's been very much more hunting for farm.
Hex Flash is down here too, Skimmy. He might have to use the ult out here, Nox.
Yeah, good flash afterwards though. Otherwise that cast was certainly going to be his demise. That makes it even more difficult now for them to look at a fight.
But that's so intelligent from Hex Flash, right? The minute he knows that the Rift Herald is secured, he channels that base, he runs bot, which he knows is going to be sacrificed. And that means Nox, who previously thought he was fine, he was just in a 1v1 against the Gragas, he could take Krugs for free, flips it on its head, and now there's an opportunity for a Rift Herald in this mid lane.
It certainly is. Foreigner inside as the passenger, shoving out one straight into the mid lane. First start of the game falling on down, opening up the mid, which is certainly what you like to see. And applying as much pressure as they can to draw the members of Fury to congregate mid 2.
Gets those 2 charges as well here as Chirp's really far up in the lane. There is a Jarvan behind him.
Getting collapsed upon from multiple angles right now. Aggro's the smite to slow him down to start off with. Chirp going to try and do whatever he can. This time does get the flash to jump out of harm's way. But there is the one-man Cataclysm. There is the ult on towards Nox. And there is the shutdown. The soul claimed and the kill they so desperately needed.
And Foreigner's flash was so close to being up. If he had that, he would have been able to flash out of the Cataclysm. But they want a little bit more here. Draymond has flash. He's just going to give it.
That would have been, I would say, maybe biting off a little bit more than they could chew, right? Especially with the explosive cast and the flash. And the dash too. Very tough champion to take down is that Gragas. But they're going to be happy getting the shutdown onto the Jarvan. And, you know, getting the Viego more involved.
But that's really how you're going to come back in this game if you are the side of Fury, right? It's taking advantage of these picks, especially around the Malzahar, right? Chirp did a really nice job of holding his flash until the end, so Foreigner had to commit really far up the lane before the TP could come in from Tomasino and they could take him down. So pick by pick, yes, they are down 2 dragons, and yes, there is a point where they are going to have to face Ion if they want to deny the Infernal Soul. But as for now, keep scaling, keep finding those picks, and eventually hope your Aphelios can come online.
Well, that certainly seems to be the case, the argument, if we fast forward on to 20 minutes now. I mean, it's always one of those really hypothetical questions. It's hard to answer because you say, has Ion done enough to snowball this game with a very squishy comp? And you'd look at it right now and say, yeah, if they do take a 5v5, they just flat out win. But then you look at Fry and say, well, surely you give them another 5-10 minutes and they've got some item spikes of their own. I mean, just look at the culling right now. Already down to 50% is Hooper and enough to force out 2 flashes.
Yeah, he can miss the flash. Luckily, there's a few members of Ion here, but Tomasino's going in.
He's on his own right now. He decides against it very quickly. Toppy telling him, hey, just jump back to that campfire, get cozy, get content. So AD carry has nothing. He's not even there, as well as Jovi split pushing top.
Nox might be caught out here. He does have the ult, so he is pretty safe, but going to be forced to use that 5 seconds before Dragon spawning, Skimmy. Foreigner!
Ult for ult. Foreigner's locked in within his grasp. Out goes the bomb, and he is dead. Nowhere to go. A second flash as that bubble certainly was going to be his demise. The prison soon to lock him down. And they've got a Dragon to disengage away to, Max. I mean, Ion really doing so much work here.
I mean, this aggression, Skimmy, it's catching even me off guard. I can only imagine how Fury are feeling. It starts off with Nebula trading 1-for-1, double summoners burnt from Hooper on that mid-wave. And yes, you both use flash, but Nebula is the one who's 100% health. Nebula is the one who has priority on the wave. And because of how far up Ion have pushed their vision, you can see the control wards basically commanding all of this bot lane river. They can feel free to escort him out, and Fury can do nothing but watch as their jungle and the dragon gets taken. And
not even just that. I mean, they're watching top lane fall as well. They're losing a 4v5 whilst being split push, whilst having another dragon denied away from them to put now Ion on, you know, soul point. It really is one of those cases of, okay, you can get an Infernal Soul on top of all the snowballing pressure you already have. It's feeling a little bit like, okay, guys, how do we look to try and stabilize this one? Do we have a chance to try and contest them when that Baron spawns?
And that absolutely is the question now, right? Because Jovi almost feels unmatchable in the side lane. There's certainly no way you can actually kill him if he does have that QSS up and he does have all that mobility, especially with that Infernal Soul helping out with those little embers, granting him more ability haste, granting him movement speed when he picks them up. He's just so slippery. So to me, if you're Fury, you're going to have to bunch some members up, bring them towards this mid lane and try to get some vision back, because if you keep playing into this side lane, I've got to go catch this wave, I've got to go catch that wave, you're never going to be a step ahead.
Yeah, it's going to be really hard for him to try and match that, right? I mean, really, the best answer you have will be the Malzahar with the dot stacking up, but it's only one lane, and I mean, just looking at all these lanes, feel the pressure, feel the burst of some of these very cheap and strong item spikes, which has certainly put themselves in a fairly commanding position. Soon to be about 4k up is what Iron are hoping to try and achieve, as the Frozen Heart now comes out here for Tomasino. A very tanky man, that is to be said here, with the magic resistance as well as the armor there to try and really tank up the world and hope that he can weather the storm that will be coming out of Lucian as well as LeBlanc. But all eyes are going to go towards that Baron. Up in 30 seconds. First of all, can they get vision? And in two, can they actually find a way to push themselves into a position to contest?
Yep, absolutely, Skimmy, and I think you raised a really good point about Tomasino's tankiness. He is, at this point, the only person who can actually stand on mid-wave safely, right? You can see Fury are already so scared. This Milio Aphelios basically get one-tapped by Lucian, especially with that Voltaic Cyclo Sword being online now as well. They will absolutely get melted, so they need to bring this K'Sante up, and Tomasino needs to recognize that once he's shoved a wave, he needs to go towards mid lane, which is exactly what he's doing right now.
Question mark pings around this mid lane right now as both teams looking to try and wrestle for control of presence, as well as an understanding over who can do what at any given stage. Obviously, Foreigner being very much the bodyguard, if you will, saying you're not allowed to go much further than just this mark at the moment. But mid lane certainly is the focus. And a new Baron pit, right? We've got a brand new Baron and the all-seeing Baron, so you've got this slightly different terrain to get yourself into that one, a few different channels. Is there a preference that you have, having played it?
This one's my favorite. I just think the way that it changes the Rift is so cool. Having that extra strip really makes it a lot of opportunities for flankers. And speaking of flankers, right, the vision control that Ion have means that it's so hard for Fury to actually push up, right? We saw Tomasino before shove a wave, try to walk towards mid. He got pinged out 10 seconds before he could even do anything. Same thing happened with Nox there. So unless they're able to burst through, there's only 2 minutes to an Infernal Soul on the cards here. I was worried for a second, then I realized it's LeBlanc with QSS. It's completely fine. But with 2 minutes until Soul, Fry have to do something. They have to make a play, or else they're just going to be torn between objectives and going to lose both.
Well, that's it, right? You're almost in a situation of you need to be decisive. You need to say, this is where we'll draw the line in the sand, and this is the fight that we'll look to try and take. Otherwise, quite rightly as you mentioned, it's a dragon into a Baron, into a slow burnout of, okay, guys, we never really had a chance to give them the true 5v5. We never really scaled into this one to give them that true test of skill. Doraemon going to be fairly tanky, even if he is building full AP to really hold his own here. Foreigner just going to literally phase check them and dodge out that silence. But neither side really looking to go for the Baron just yet.
Yeah, no one's going for the Baron, especially not Fury. And when you look at their team comp, it's actually really hard to start a fight. Besides something like a Malzahar ult, what do you actually have, right? This comp is very good at running back, but at this point in the game where you need to actually go forward, you need to contest objectives yourself, it's very hard to actually pull the trigger and be explosive and to start a fight. So for now, Iron feel very comfortable. Two items more on all their carries at this point. All they have to do is make sure they're not slipping up, they're clearing vision, and they're just following through the process. 40 seconds on this Infernal Soul.
To your point there, Max, I think the weird thing about it is your ranged engage really is a Moonlight Vigil coming out from the Aphelios with the Gravitum active, right? You know, the massive slow from afar, but that's not really the most ideal of circumstances. You're going to try and max out your damage, but Group Test 5 are Fury. Mid lane is their focus. And they want to try and even up the scoreboard here, make it 2 turrets to 2, make it a little bit easier for them to then contest the Baron or the Dragon, whatever they do desire. That is up in 15 seconds, and given there has been a massive stalemate towards this Baron, that suits Iron perfectly. Yeah,
they actually do get mid-prior here, which is quite surprising, but then you look at bot lane and you realize that Jovi's just taking a tier 1 turret, he's pressuring the tier 2, and at this point in the game, I don't think Fury have the damage to be able to do this Dragon. They're corralled in here, Skimmy. Doraemon's behind them, Jovi's behind them. How do they win this fight?
Such good positioning here from the flanks of Ion right now. Fury are stuck between a rock and a hard place. They're going to try and fight themselves out of this impossible situation. In they go! Hex Flash taken. Nox finds a reset. Becomes Nami. That's not who you want to be. 2 kills for Jovi. He's on the double. Another found there. And now they're looking for the ace. Now looking to try and say, this is why we're 5k ahead of you. You had all the time in the world to group up for the 5v5. And this is the best you've got.
They kill Hex Flash at the start, but the second Jovi, the second Doraemon get into that backline, the fight explodes in favor of Ion. They're going to ace the side of Fury. They're going to take the Infernal Soul. 2 tier 2 turrets in their sights as well. This game is almost one and done.
It certainly is. I mean, let's run it back once again. You found them all the way walking into this one. They know that LeBlanc was just on their bots here too, but it's almost like they're surprised.
Yeah, they've got to pull the trigger to go forwards, which is what Tomasino does here. But look at the backline. The Nami ult hits and Doraemon flashes in. They basically one-shot the carries of Fury. They have no chance to really respond. Malzahar's left alone. And by that point, yes, Tomasino found that pick originally, but he's stuck 1v4. There's nothing he can do.
The tankiest member's the one left last because they say we can just ignore him and one-shot the squishies, which is exactly what Jovi did to the bot lane there, or Fury. And they'll be quite happy with that one. Say, well, we've managed to pick up the soul point. We've now got the Infernal to our name. Now the Baron becomes a little bit more attractive. And certainly we can now consider, let's get this one done. Let's wrap this game up and let's turn our attention to game 2.
Yeah, I mean, the only positive for Fury, and there are very few, don't get me wrong, is that they save their flashes, right? They do have flashes on all their carries, purely because they died so quickly last fight. So at least the Cataclysm isn't going to be fight ending on its own, right? Obviously, there's still all that damage to come through, but maybe there's a world in which Hooper can scale, we can save this flash. But with Tomasino eating all these waves, he's not getting much gold anytime soon.
No, he's definitely there as a janitor to protect his bot lane more than anything right now because they are down in gold, down in KDA, and down in DPS. The Heartbreaker really does just that. Foreigner solos him out. It's in a 1v1 with the assistance of some damage from the Lucian peppering him from behind. But the heal from Toppy, it's just not enough. Milio is not a wishmaker. He is really there to hit a flash and really run for the hills.
And it looks like they're not going to go for the end here. Fury and Chirp do have a pretty big wave towards this bot side, so Jovi is going to respond, but it's just going to be the Baron going into the hands of Ion. Can he get this trade here? The QSS is still active. Jovi could potentially chase him down here, Skimmy.
He certainly could. He's going to miss the chains first of all. Silence at the meantime. Out goes the Nevergrass, but there is the Distort, the Cleanse, the GG. Don't try that one again. The turret survives. The Baron is about to be claimed. And Ion, I mean, really at this point, it's dead for rights.
And they are playing these fights so well, Skimmy. Just the angles that they're coming from, right? Fury have a very good front-to-back team comp, but they've never gone to play a front-to-back, right? There's always been either Doraemon or Jovi. In that fight there, it was the LeBlanc coming in from the side, finding the carries and the support of Fury, and they just haven't had the chance to execute how they would want their team comp to be. As we take a look at this again, right, you can see Foreigner has a vendetta against Nox, flashing over and ulting him to take him out. And look at the LeBlanc here coming in from the side. Hooper is focused on the fight ahead, having to flash out. But here's Jovi, this level 16 LeBlanc, Skimmy, compared to the level 11 bot lane of Fury. There's no chance.
There's no chance. It's terrifying. And it just once again brings a massive spotlight as to why this build is so annoying. Why energized items in general, I suppose, are so disgusting because both champions in LeBlanc and Lucian had them available. We mentioned during the drafting phase that would be a little bit scary. And surprise, surprise, between them, Deathless and 8 kills.
Yeah, and this massive wave here from the side of Iron as well. As here goes Jovi again. He has the QSS available.
He cleanses out of it with the scimitar, so he's upgraded that one. Distort 1, looking for another dash away as well. Doesn't really care, pops the clone, gets the kill. But it's a shutdown against him, so Nox gets his revenge. 3 kills to his name. Can he find a second chance? Looking to try and dash away. There is Tomasino looking to try and tank up the world right now. He's taking 0 damage. But Toppy's amongst it with Foreigner, who's looking to lock them up as much as he can. I think the Moonlight Vigil did absolutely nothing. And Fury are really feeling just how far behind they are.
I mean, somehow it's a miracle that no one on Fury goes down there, right? They get the massive 1,000 gold shutdown into the pocket of Nox, and they do fend off the push for now, Skimmy. So it's not over. It is a big swing in the favor of Fury.
Yes, 8k is the deficit right now, but there is a chance. And I'll tell you what, if there's a comeback potential, we've certainly seen weirder storylines take place in the LCO before. Another Baron to look forward to in a couple of minutes' time. That could be set for the Elder as well. If this game were to go that late, but it all starts with Jovi feeling confident. He's got the active, so why not?
Yeah, I think confidence is the thing here, right? He knows it's basically the last play again where he has that QSS, but doesn't respect Nox potentially coming from behind him. And that really is the difference maker here. Foreigner tries to stop him, but the second he gets that LeBlanc, he's feeling really good. That's the problem of having someone really fed when you are playing a Viego, is that if you manage to pick them up, you're going to be quite strong yourself. And then somehow Tomasino tanks up 1,000,000 damage again, gets out, and Fury live to fight another fight.
Definitely a much better fight for the side of Fury, where Tomasino can be amongst all the rowdiness, can look to try and be that sponge and say, guys, you can stand up a little bit further. Yes, we don't have the best type of engage, but we had the ability to wrestle with them if they give us an opening like such. But as mentioned before, right, you're still looking towards these major objectives soon to spawn. And the question becomes, you know, do Fury feel inspired enough? Do they feel confident enough to be able to contest anything?
Yeah, 1 minute on this Elder here. To me, the problem is this top lane, right? You look at the TPs on mid laners, Chirp has no TP. If you're going to send anyone top lane, it's got to be Tomasino, and then suddenly you don't have anyone who can stand in front of this culling, who can stand in front of all of this damage. So if Jovi just continues to fight here, they don't have to start the Elder. They might have started to find Nox though.
Oh, it's a dicey one for Nox there. Do you cancel it? Do you not? Out goes the explosive cast. Let's give him a helping hand to disengage away, but Iona basically saying this area belongs to us. You will not be able to contest this. Who are you going to send up to top lane to try and deal with this LeBlanc? No one there. They're basically trying to work the piece to say it's a bit of a checkmate.
But it's very nice from Ion, right? They realize that they don't need to start the Elder. They can win the game in other ways. The Elder is essentially just their trump card that they have in their back pocket. And now that Fury are catching these waves, look at the vision, Skimmy. There's not a single ward in this jungle for Fury. It is all controlled by Ion. Who's going to face check if you don't have this Cassante with you?
Well, that's it. I mean, he can't bid everywhere at once, right? So he's really got his work cut out for him, as Tomasino is going to TP into the mid lane right now, makes his presence known. Locks eyes with Jovi straight away and realizes probably not the best target to try and lock down. Not going to be too easy for me to achieve that, but the Graviton is available there for Hooper. His flash up in about 5 seconds. Cast across the wall from Doraemon. Look to try and possess a cheeky flank out of vision and out of mind.
Look at Jovi.
Rowan is already on this Elder. He's taken that one nice and easily. Zone into a 5-man. This would be the perfect cataclysm.
Oh, Doraemon.
But Hex Flash gets us started. There is the cast to lock them down. And Nox is running as fast as he can. He'll flash. And Ibn will say, look, I'll be a kind god today. You can have that one for free. But the fight continues. And Tomasino up in the air, locked in the Acro Prism, falls on down. Doesn't matter how tanky you are, Jovi finds a way.
It's all about the angles, Skimmy. Doraemon there finding the nastiest Flash Gragas combo, essentially one-shotting Toppy there and taking Hooper down very low as well. And yes, they didn't get the Elder then, but they've got plenty of time to take it down.
The Elder was the bait, it was the invitation, it was the chance for you to walk in, but it was always going to be a trap. With Iron having all that vision, they knew exactly what Fury were going to do, and they were just like lambs to slaughter.
I mean, it's so hard, right? Tomasino walks in, but look at Doraemon's position. Here it comes here on top of the Nami wave. Hooper almost gets one shot if he doesn't flash that barrel there. Luckily on the backside here, Hooper actually gets some time to hit. They do manage to take down Doraemon, but then Jovi's there. He's always there, it feels like, when you least expect him. And not to mention, playing a Phalios versus a Jarvan and a LeBlanc does not feel very good without flash.
So he doesn't, and I tell you what, there's something to be said, even if it is insanely oppressive to play with this build, a good LeBlanc getting piloted around is so satisfying. It does really feel like one of those kind of champions you can, especially in the pro landscape, actually 1v5 on.
Yeah, and he's full build now with Infernal Soul and Elder Dragon. So if he was a problem before, he's absolutely that now as Nox is caught out.
He's caught out and he's gone before he can even finish that sentence there, Max. Straight back to the grey screen, picks himself up a Hysterics, which would have been kind of helpful. Probably wouldn't have saved him from that death, but ultimately is going to be a nice free item spike for him to look forward to, if the game allows it, because they are on to Baron.
And there's nothing you can do about this if you are Fury. You're fighting into an Elder Dragon. To me, you have to try to find maybe a LeBlanc on the sideline, but here goes Jovi, Hooper.
Look at Toppy trying as hard as he can. Here's a heal. Here's a wish. There's the star. Not going to be enough. He's running. But Jovi might actually die to the tower. Tomasino flushing into life and gets his revenge too.
He's having fun with it. He's absolutely testing the limits there. Flashing back in to try to get that auto attack. Will eventually go down, but things are still very much looking good for Ion here. They pick up the Baron on top of this Elder that they've got for the next minute. There's a wave top that they have Baroned up. They're going to go in here and Skimmy. This culling from the Lucian, once it comes back up, is going to kill anyone while this Elder's active.
It's certainly going to be terrifying with the buff then from the Nami, especially with the first strike being active as well. It will do a lot of damage, to say it lightly. And I mean, it's interesting also if we look at the itemization here from Fury. Tomasino has been the one to play a little bit more supportive. So a clear hierarchy as to say, Nox, we believe in your carry potential. I'll take the back seat on this one. There is that culling. It doesn't look like it did too much that time. Minions in the way, but also just a tanky member in the Cassante there to soak up an absolute storm. But it is going to be Fury doing whatever they can to prevent any of these inhibitors falling on down, with the Elder still having about 10 seconds left. And
to his credit, Tomasino is playing a fantastic game, right? It's obviously very hard when his team is behind, but he is doing exactly what he needs to as a Cassante, trying to be that frontline unit. But ultimately, there's just so much damage here as Ion, they're taking their second inhibitor. They don't quite have a wave prepped in bot lane, but they can get to it pretty quickly. And a triple inhib here is just a death sentence.
I mean, it really is all about morale shattering at this point, it feels like, for Fury. They know this game is so far away from them We're talking about 2K leads. Had they done enough to try and snowball this one? Their first 5v5, it blew it out of proportion. Now you're saying Infernal, Elders, Barons, what more do they need? Well, how about you have to suffer with 2 of those inhibitors being down and wait as they slowly push in that third.
And it's quite nice as well from a younger team, right? You know, typically they are the more rush teams. We have seen their fair share of aggression, but in terms of closing out the game, they are being very methodical. They are taking the steps that they need to. Playing off waves really well. You can see Jovi, he already is making up for his previous mistakes, right? He's not over pushing on this wave. He's walking with it when he needs to. And they're going to get this wave in a bit before the top wave crushes. So Fury could potentially go, but Nebula once again just dashes forward with no regard for human life.
Really is, just making sure that Nox's introduction to the league is one of misery, really. I feel like the Heartbreaker's used a lot more as a second flash than that instead of like an executing ability to claim a soul.
Sure.
In goes Jovi. Oh, the Liver Grasp instantly cancelled by the Scimitar. I feel so bad when a counter pick can't even do that.
Yeah, and what does Malzahar do now, right? Besides wave clearing, there's actually no use to this champion when this Nether Grasp is down, and it's just going to be this third inhibitor going over.
And it certainly is. The turret falls on down. The inspired cannon minions looking to try and put some damage in as well. Make sure that Fury are zoned all the way back to that fountain. And it's almost like a roster. They're taking turns to jump in and say who can do more damage. Doran there to finish it off with the hunting for a second. Tomasino buffering that CC. The first of many Noxus turrets falling on down. Underneath the second. And Hooper, with the red weapon, says Nebula, you will fall on down. Foreigner finds the second. That's going to be equal by Jovi taking another turret. And now the base is exposed. In goes Chirp. He's going to fall on down as he gets taken back through space and time is Tomasino, but they do not care. Ion claim game number 1.
They're a young team, but they're playing with the pedigree of veterans. Ion absolutely play beyond their years in terms of experience, in terms of the aggression they show, and yet at the same time they're controlled in the way they close out the game. Just a fantastic way to enter the split as a new team, as a new org.
A new team, a new org, a chance for them to showcase, could we do something really funny here and just open up a 2-0 storyline and say, hey, look, we've got a bunch of debutants, but we're not playing like rookies, we're playing for the win. We'll find out how the series concludes after the break.